Russia and its neighbors is enormous. It's about a sixth of the surface of the earth. It has a very cold climate and is covered in forests. There's a natural barrier made by the Ural Mountains, and that marks the border between Europe and Asia. South of the forests are these vast grasslands called the steppe. The widest part of the steppe is the Ukraine, the most important farmland of Eastern Europe. The steppe stretches in an almost unbroken path from Hungary to Mongolia, making it an excellent highway for nomads with their herds to travel on. Originally, most of these nomads migrated out of Mongolia, following the steppe until they got to India, the Middle East, or Europe. The earliest known people groups living in this area were broken down into three basic groups: the Finns, Indo-Europeans, and the Mongols. Today's Russians are descended from the Indo-Europeans said to have migrated from the Middle East. Now, from about 1500 BC, the Slavs, which were part of this Indo-European group, settled in the region of Poland and Western Russia. The Slavs expanded out and settled most of Eastern Europe. And in the process of spreading out, they divided into Eastern, Western, and Southern Slavs. Now, during the 9th century, a group of Vikings from Sweden, called the Varangians, began to explore the waterways in the same region. Instead of plundering the Slavs, the Vikings were more interested in establishing a trade route from the Baltic to the Black Sea. The leader of these Varangians was a semi-legendary warrior called Rurik, and he established a base for his people in the year 862 in the city of Novgorod. Our source for all this information comes from a manuscript called the Primary Chronicle. It's made up of several different manuscripts and documents and even oral traditions. It's a history of Kievan Russia from about 850 to 1110, originally compiled about 1113. Tradition long regarded the original compilation as the work of a monk called Nestor. According to the Primary Chronicle, the territories of the East Slavs in the 9th century were divided up between the Varangians and the Khazars. The Varangians are first mentioned in imposing a tribute from Slavic and Finnic tribes in 859. The Finnic and Slavic tribes in the area of Novgorod rebelled against the Varangians and drove them out. Then, once they'd gotten rid of them, the tribes didn't have any laws, and however soon began to make war with one another, prompting them to invite the Varangians back again to rule them and bring peace. The Primary Chronicle is quoted as saying, "Let us seek a prince who may rule over us and judge us according to the law." They went overseas to the Varangian Rus, and they said, "Our land is great and rich, there's no order in it, come and rule." And they selected 3 brothers with their kinfolk who took with them all the Rus and migrated. These 3 brothers were Rurik, Cineas, and Truva, and they were the ones who established themselves in Novgorod and another place, Beluzero and Izborsk. The 2 brothers died, and Rurik became the sole ruler of the territory and the progenitor of the Rurik dynasty. A short time later, 2 of Rurik's men, Askold and Dur, asked him for permission to go to Tsargrad, which is Constantinople. On their way south, they discovered a small city on a hill called Kiev. They captured it and the surrounding country from the Khazars. The Chronicle reports that Askold and Dur continued to Constantinople with the navy to attack the city in 863. They apparently caught the Byzantines by surprise and totally ravaged the area. But for some reason, they turned back before attacking the city itself. The reason is unclear. There could have been a storm, it could have been the return of the emperor, or, according to some later account, a miracle after a ceremonial appeal by the patriarch and the emperor to the Virgin. Anyway, the attack was the first encounter between the Rus and the Byzantines, and that led the patriarch to send missionaries north to engage and attempt to convert the Rus and the Slavs. Rurik died in around 879 and bequeathed his kingdom to the great unifier of the new Rus region, Prince Oleg. He was initially regent for his young son Igor, but became a military force in the region. He led his army down the Dnieper River. He captured Smolensk and Lyubek before reaching Kiev. Kiev became his capital city, and he declared it the mother of all cities. And Oleg then set about consolidating his power over the surrounding region and the riverways, imposing tributes on the local tribes, conquering various tribes such as the Drevlians, which becomes an interesting issue later on, and he imposing tributes and subjugates several other tribes. The relations between the Rus and the Byzantines became more complex after Oleg took control of Kiev. The wealth and income of the Rus depended heavily on trading with Byzantium. There's a description of the course of the princes of Kiev. They would collect tribute from client tribes, assembling the product into flotilla, hundreds of boats, carrying them down the Dnieper River to the Black Sea, onto Constantinople. On their return trip, carrying silk, fabrics, spices, wine, and fruit. The importance of this trade relationship led to military action when disputes inevitably arose. The primary chronicle reports that the Rus attacked Constantinople again in 907, probably to secure trade access. The chronicle glorifies the military prowess and shrewdness of Oleg, an account imbued with legendary detail. Oleg sailed to Constantinople with a huge flotilla, and when they got there, they found there was an enormous chain stretched across the harbor that prevented the ships from going in. Fortunately, the Byzantines were out fighting against the Arabs and various other problematic tribes in the area. Oleg hit upon this idea of pulling out his boats onto the land and putting wheels on them and waiting for the wind so that they could drag them towards the city. Apparently, when the Byzantines saw these ships coming towards the city walls, they were terrified and sued for peace, and there was a great trade agreement that was much in favor of Oleg. The Byzantine sources don't even mention this, but there is a record of the treaties.